Hi, Joe Mazumdar again from Exploration Insight at the 2017 Vancouver Roundup. Now we're going to be looking at another high-grade play that we've talked about previously. And this is Mariana Resources. Most of their valuation is tied up in the high-grade gold and copper Hot Maden deposit, which is a joint venture between them and a Turkish conglomerate. Mariana Resources owns 30% of this project, and Eric Roth is going to help me discuss the recent scoping study that you did.
Thanks, Joe. Great to chat to you again.
Eric, so you guys just put out a scoping study, it was last week?
That's correct, yes. So this was based on our July 2016 resource. We looked at, basically what we did is we took that resource, we put some mine designs around it, we looked at processing options for the mineralization.
Could you give us an idea what that resource is?
I certainly can. So this was the resource that we published last year. This was back from July. So the total resource was just over 7 million tonnes in indicated category at basically half an ounce per tonne in the old metric, I guess, so 15 grams per tonne gold equivalent. So very, very high grade resource overall. But of course the key part of the system is, of that, on the eastern margin of the deposit, we have 2 million tonnes, so about a third of that running over 1 ounce per tonne gold equivalent. So these are very, very high gold and copper grades for the system, if you see. So 32 grams per tonne gold and 3.5% copper. So these are very, very high gold and copper grades.
And from what I remember, topographically it's challenging, so you've decided to go underground.
That's correct, yes. Okay, so there's two things. So the underground, what we've actually, in terms of the mine designs, we have looked at underground, a conventional decline. As you mentioned, it is favorable, more favorable to go underground given the topography, but fairly straightforward operation in terms of a decline and stoping, long hole open stoping. So this is going to be a fairly straightforward operation. And we looked at different throughputs, different mining rates. So we worked between 0.8 to 1.2 million tonnes a year, but we ended up taking our base case being 1 million tonnes per year. So that should be quite achievable, given it's quite a wide ore body, and we have so far to about 350 meters in depth in terms of the resource.
Is the high grade earlier or is it later? Because I see your IRR at, what is it? What is the gold price used in that?
Yeah, so for the calculations, for the economic modeling and for the mine designs, we use $12.50 gold.
And it's 80% revenue is gold and 20
Correct,
something
just
like
a whisker
that?
under, so about 78% of the revenue is gold and about 22% is copper. So the copper is also an important contributor to the economics as well. But 78% of the revenue is basically from gold. And so when you look at the production profile, so on average we should be able to produce about 300,000 ounces per year. But we do have a peak in years 2, 3, and a little bit into year 4, and that's actually when we get into the highest grade material.
The ultra high grade
This
material.
is the ultra high grade material, and in fact the sweet spot, if you like, the highest grades that we do see in the deposit are typically between that 100 and 200 meters vertically below surface.
On
so
the eastern
really
margin of the deposit.
Always on the eastern margin. So this is really the highest grade portion of the system, and you see that in years 2, 3, and 4, particularly in the production profiles. And as you mentioned, that obviously has a big impact on such a high NPV as well too. So
at $12.50 gold price, you're getting at about 150% internal rate of return.
That's great, and that's after tax.
And
so
that's
a post-tax IRR as well.
And that's what, a payback of, is that less than a year?
So the way we have it is 2 years, but that includes some of the underground development time. So,
right.
So what we do is from year 0, but it's less than 2 years in any case, the full payback. It's a very quick payback. The total capex of the project is $260 million approximately, which is actually very manageable for a project of this
And
scale.
170 up front.
Correct, 170 million up front, and the rest is basically sustaining capital as we go forward with further underground mine development, equipment and things like that.
And your contribution is about 50 million US.
That's correct, yes.
Right, and so going forward, I mean, and also in terms of the metallurgy, I guess one thing that our audience needs to understand is that you're not, even though 80% of your revenue is from gold, you don't actually produce doré. You don't produce a lot of doré. Yes. You're producing the gold in a concentrate.
That's correct.
Could you let our guy...
So there's 2 reasons for that. First of all, obviously, so in terms of, we're producing the concentrates for 2 reasons. Primarily because we do need to recover the copper, so the best way to recover the copper is through a concentrate as well. As we mentioned, that's about 20% plus or minus of the revenue. But the second thing is too, we don't want to use cyanide on site. So the idea is that basically...
And that helps with the permitting.
That really helps with the permitting. What we're looking at is a small footprint, minimum impact operation, which is mostly all underground and producing a concentrate. So, you know, when people have issues in permitting stage, it's generally relating to cyanide, to open pits, to water, and we can really tick all of those boxes, which does help to minimize, and tailings, which does help to minimize the time in terms of getting permits approved for the mine.
Okay, and so what are the steps going forward to putting this thing into production?
Yeah, so from here, so the next step forward is, so the scoping study is really the first of the economic and mine studies, if you like. So we will then go to the pre-feasibility study. We should get that completed here in the third quarter of this year. So the basic plan is that, and from there we go on to the final feasibility studies, but with the PFS in hand, which will be completed in Q3, we also plan to go into the mine permitting. So the idea is that what we put out in the pre-feasibility study will be as close as we would expect the final mine to be. So the PFS will be very precise in terms of what we go through, because we will need that for the permitting as well.
So if everything goes, let's say, according to plan in terms of your PFS coming out, let's say in the third quarter of 17, and the permitting, when do you think, and then the construction time, and when do you think this thing can come into production?
Yeah, it's a good question, Joe. So I think with the, so once we go into the permitting system, so we will obviously then do the full feasibility studies. That should take a year. I'm hoping the permitting will take about the same sort of time frame, so that we get to the end of 2018. We then have approximately, I would say, estimate a year to build the mine, so that takes us to the end of 2019, and then in principle in 2020 we could have production here. So that's the general time frame that we are handling at the moment.
So as an investor, what can we expect over the next 6 to 12 months for you guys in Catalyst?
Yeah, so in terms of news flow, so on the Hot Maden side, we've got the development studies, which, as I say, we will continue to push this towards production, and this will go to production very quickly. Our joint venture partners are very, very keen to push this along the path to production also. We also have a lot of exploration drilling to still do at Hot Maden, so there's still a lot of upside to test here. I think people
to the south, from what I understand.
Yes, to the south specifically. So, you know, it's only been 2 years since we made the discovery hole. So we've actually come a very long way in a very short time, which means we haven't had a chance to explore the entire prospective zone. And as you mentioned, to the south, it was an area that the Russians had mined 100 years ago, and we haven't done any work at all down there. So there's a lot of upside to still test as we go forward. So from Hot Maden, you'll have the development story, you'll have the exploration upside being tested, the search for new ounces, for new resources. In parallel, we do have a broader portfolio too. We are also drilling.
I see that here.
Yes. So in parallel, we have also commenced drilling at our Ergama project in Western Turkey. That's 100% Mariana. It's a porphyry gold copper system. So we should have results here in February, March. We should be able to come out to the market with an update on how that's gone. We also have recently acquired, at the end of 2016, a new project in Ivory Coast. Right now it's a fairly early stage project, but very good potential. I was just there before Christmas. We looked at really prioritizing target areas for drilling later in the year, so we would expect to be drilling here in Ivory Coast, let's say the second half of 2017. And of course, Mariana historically has had a very large portfolio in Argentina, in Santa Cruz province, which is a mining-friendly province in Argentina. And I guess right now we're looking at the options. We have a number of high-grade targets. Again, the focus here is on high-grade gold-silver targets. And going forward, we'll look at the best options for taking those forward.
So in terms of working capital, you're pretty well funded for your plan?
We're very well funded for this year, so we're okay. So we currently have about $5.5 million US in Treasury. There are also a number of warrants that are in the money. So that will cover all the expected work that we have on in the budget right now for 2017. So.
Okay. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thanks, Joe. Great
Look
pleasure.
forward to the news flow.
Thank you.
Cheers. In our search for quality projects, Hot Maden really fits that bill, and now we're going to keep that project and keep the company because there's just too few quality projects out there. So we're still looking forward to more news flow from Mariana over the next year.